Hey, welcome to the Saints of City and Me, a new podcast that explores how football fandom can become a gateway to the rich culture, history, and unique charm of one of the most beloved cities in the United States. I'm your host, Dan. You might know me as Procrastinatus on Twitter, and I'm joined by my co-host and dear friend and fellow New Orleans enthusiast, Mike, who goes by MKC Papa. So, what are we going to be doing? We're going to be talking to passionate fans all around the globe, whether they are transplanted residents or visitors who just fell in love with New Orleans through the Saints or vice versa. We're going to be asking them to share their stories, their memories, their experiences about all that makes New Orleans the captivating place that it is. Whether it's the raucous revelry of Mardi Gras or the vibrant sounds of Jazz Fest, and we can attest to that. We've just come back. Or the solemn beauty of the jazz funeral and the second line. We'll explore all these diverse traditions, the music, the food. Oh my God, Mike, the food and the culture, the things that make this city so energetic and so exciting. So before we get into it, I just wanted to say, if you want to give us a follow, you can find us at Saint City Me. That's Twitter, that's Instagram. We're on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube. So without further ado, I just want to hand over to Mike. Mike, how you doing?
I'm all right. I'm good. I'm excited. I'm nervous. Never thought I'd ever even attempt to do a podcast.
At our age.
Well, hey, look, you say our age. I think there's a bit of a difference, and I think you're aware I shaved my beard off because of that. Just like 72. But no, I'm excited, mate. It's one of these things. We listen to plenty of New Orleans Saints podcasts, and we're not going to do deep dives. We're going to talk about the Saints. We're going to give our feelings, our responses to stuff that go on, but we are not doing deep dives because there are far too many podcasts out there that we listen to who do that far better than we could. Yeah, we're a couple of Brits who are into the game, hugely into the city, the culture, the music, the food, and we just want to learn as much as we can about the game and about the city we love. So yeah, I think that's what we're about.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd agree. And at that point as well, I think primarily we're about the people and the fans and just showcasing how many great fans we've got everywhere. Because I think, we talk to people and they talk about, we're a bit of a small market team, similar to someone like Green Bay or something. We're quite comfortable in our wheelhouse of being the team we are. I think sometimes we forget that there's some great fans all around the world. We know a lot of them in the UK, and we've met people from Germany and France and places like that, and they're all such passionate fans. And I think this is a really good. You and I, when we spoke about this a lot about doing this podcast for quite a while, and I think we've said that's the key. It's opening it up to show how many good fans we've got, and we've got some great stories. We've got some great people lined up to come on and talk to us. Some really, really dedicated fans with some really interesting stories that I think if you're living in New Orleans and you hear some of these stories, you'll be amazed that these guys from London or Scotland or wherever of Cardiff have done these things.
We get that all the time over there when we go over. It's firstly is people say, "Oh, where are you from?" Australia, which is a bit annoying. But then the next thing is, why are you here? And it's, when we were there for Jazz Fest, we were like, oh, we're here for Jazz Fest. Oh, first time to the city? No, been here plenty of times. Why is that? We're a Saints fan. That's the bit where they're like, really? How did that happen? I don't think it's any different to somebody from Minnesota coming over to London to go and watch, with no disrespect, QPR or Crystal Palace. You would genuinely say, how did that happen? Because I think that sort of highlights how small a market we are in the NFL. So I think we know how many people overseas support the Saints, and I think we punch a little bit above our weight. And that's what this pod is about. It's about inviting people on from all over the globe to tell their story about why they're a Saints fan. How did that happen? Because genuinely, when we've been over in the city, people are genuinely interested in how it came about. And I think that's what this pod is about.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. 100%. That's entirely where we're pitching at, and it's not, it's not just about people who've been to New Orleans. Obviously, we keen to get people on who have been to New Orleans who can share their experience, but it's also about people who haven't, who are looking to go and hearing about their excitement. Because I remember the first time I went, and to be fair, my first visit was a fly by your seat of your pants. I booked it on the Wednesday and was out there on the Friday. But that anticipation, that excitement, that, like, I remember that first moment when I stepped. The first moment I stepped on Bourbon Street. Yeah, I know it's a cliche, but it's like I'm on Bourbon Street, and you just, it's the excitement. The first time I saw the dome, and I was like pinching myself because I was like, look, and it's majestic. It's just, it dominates the skyline. You see it as you're coming down from the airport, and you're just like, oh my God, there it is, and it's there, and it's. For people like us who've been following the team for a number of years before we managed to get there, it's overwhelming. I think that's what, like you say, I'm sure it's the same as when someone gets to go to, New York for the first time and looks up and sees the Empire State Building. It's the same kind of adulation that we have for the city and the team, and to see those things, it just blows you away. And I'm really keen to just to hear that you can hear that excitement in someone's voice when they talk about wanting to do it. And that's, you can't capture that. That's like,
no. And to be honest, this year there's a number of people I think that we both know who are going to be making their first visit to the city for a Saints game. And it's lovely because they do come to us and they do ask for tips and hints and all those sort of things. By no means are we the experts on the city. That's why we go and we try and talk to local people to find out as much as we can. But I genuinely see the excitement in people who have never been, who just cannot wait to get over. And the great thing about it is that they're not going to be disappointed. Yeah, you just know they're not.
And it's just like it's not just the architecture and seeing the city. It's the intangibles. It's meeting the people. It's sitting down for breakfast and someone calling you baby, and you're just like, oh my God, you just want to melt in your seat because it's everything that you were anticipating.
Expect and want. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I remember the first, because funnily enough, the first time we both went was for the same game. I don't think we necessarily want to mention what the game was, but I remember the first time that myself and my wife, we came out of the hotel, and as we turned left onto Canal, that literally the first thing that hit us was there was a young kid rapping, there was a guy on the keys, there was a guy doing a beatbox, and there were about 60 people around him who were dancing and partying. That was our first experience of being in the city once we came out of the hotel. And literally at that moment, I just thought, I'm at home. I just know where I am. And I felt comfortable. The Bourbon Street experience was just, when you turn into it is something, especially if you turn up, I think like we did I think it was a Friday night. It was obviously before a really big game, so the place was absolutely packed. And we went into the Absinthe House, which is a very famous bar. That was our first thing. So we hadn't actually, even though that's on the street, we hadn't gone onto the street. So me and my wife had a drink, came out of there, and we said, right, let's go and explore. And she walked down, I won't swear, but she went, oh my God, this is like Magaluf on steroids. So yeah, it can be, and also I think it can be overwhelming. And your first trip, especially if you hit there and it's maybe even a Thursday night, but especially at the weekend, it can be overwhelming but horribly exciting. And obviously we know, we're talking as tourists, so of course your first time there, you're going to hit that street because it's world famous. Obviously we've explored the city far, far more than that since, but for anybody who's there for the first time, it's a magical, scary, just unique experience. I think I really do.
Do you know what I think as well? I like, and I think this is certainly something we've done both together and individually. Is you go on that first trip and you stick to the quarter and you do the big tourist spots, and every time you go, you go out a little bit further and you try and find something new and just experience something different because you feel more comfortable. The city. You're hearing about things from people and you're going, oh, I want to try that, and I want to. And those are the things you don't get in the tour guide books, and you don't get when you go on a TripAdvisor and go top 20 things to do in New Orleans, and say 10 of them are walking tours, but actually maybe someone saying to you, do you know what you should do is maybe like mid-afternoon, go up to Mid-City, go into Bayou Beer Garden, get yourself some crawfish, sit down and just enjoy the atmosphere. And that's the kind of thing that you can't, it's not going to be on a travel guide. It's the kind of thing you're going to learn from talking to people.
Jump into Katie's, which we did. You know,
them char-grilled oysters. I know I said about the food
exactly.
at the start. I've never eaten oysters before.
But again, that only comes from going to the city, experience the city, but most importantly, talking to sort of local people. And that, you know, you'll find you go into any bar over there and ask people. I mean, that's one of the things about them is the people behind the bar are absolute superstars. In a majority of the places that you go, they're absolute superstars, not only for the service that they give you, but also because of little tips and hints they give you. So I would always, when I'm in a bar, sort of ask someone about something, and get a little nugget out of them. So So
I was going to say, to be fair, we've had a fair few drinks with people we've never met, and we've been invited all over Louisiana, Texas, Mississippi, all over the South. Come here, come and have a drink with us, and
it's not even just the locals. It's the thing about the city is it's got this appeal. Obviously, for everyone in the States, it has an appeal. It's viewed as a party town, but it's also very different from a cultural point of view to probably most, if not all, of the rest of the state. And you know, we were over there recently, and you left on a Tuesday, I think it was, and I stayed for an extra night because I was going to a gig with an artist that I loved, and I bumped into a fella in a bar from Canada. Spent about 2 or 3 hours chatting to him. He then went and booked the ticket to sit next to me at this gig. But not only that, he then sort of invited me to go and visit him and his wife in Canada. He's coming over to London next week. I'm meeting him for a drink. But he also has a friend who's got 10 corporate tickets at Green Bay. And he was saying, if you ever need a ticket for Green Bay, then let me know. And that's what you get over there. It opens people up. People from other areas in the country, it just opens them up, and I think that's one of the magical aspects of the city.
Well, one of the things you mentioned about talking to people, just anecdotally, Mike and I went to Jazz Fest this month, or last month now, and we were literally walking from one stage to another, and someone just grabbed Mike and started talking to him. And I thought it was absolute random, and it was somebody met like 4 years ago or something in the city. They'd seen him, remembered him, and say, "Hey, Michael!" And it's just like completely. This guy, people love him.
And again, that's the wonderful thing. People are so friendly. People are so friendly. And, you know, I know some people can be a bit hesitant when they're over there and think, oh, I'm a little bit, speak to the local people. And Jesus Christ, you'll have a whale of a time.
As long as they don't want to talk to you about where you got your shoes.
Yeah. Well, maybe we'll do a top 10 things not to do when in the city, just to help people out, just from our own personal experiences.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, don't need a pony in the Erin Rose because there's no lock on the toilet door. That's my number one. Well, don't go in there.
That's the other thing we have to talk about. You need to tactically be aware of where the decent restrooms are in the city, because if you get caught short, not for a number one, you're finished, because it's one of those bizarre things that there is just no coverage when you're in a bar, in a toilet, or even a restaurant, even a really fairly high-end restaurant. The toilets are a disaster. If you
the one that gets me is the ice cubes in the urinal. I don't know. Maybe someone can tweet us and tell us why there's ice cubes in the urinal. Because to me, it's a competition. How many can I melt in the minute or two that I'm there? It does. But this all, as we said, this all adds to the character of the city, and it's all reasons we love it. All reasons we love it.
And again, it's not, you know, who knows? We might get 2 viewers, and they might be our wives. Who knows? But if any other NFL UK fans, or even NFL fans anywhere, have never been to the city for a game, it's a wonderful place to visit. And I know it's a really popular game for fans to go to when your team playing that city.
I would recommend it to a UK away fan for sure. If you want to go to an away game in the States and you want to experience a great city, and I'm not talking about taking over a city like, we get aggravated and we live 5,000 miles away when teams take over the city. But if you're a fan of the Giants or something like that, in the UK fans, there's kind of things you have big fan bases here for. Go over there and experience it. It's amazing. Do a road trip. See if you can get a college game and head up to LSU or go over to Tulane or something. Just really take it all in.
But also one of the key benefits, I think, is the fact that the dome is in the city.
Yeah.
So it sort of doesn't matter where you are. You can be, you could be in mid city, you could be in the quarter, you could be in the Garden District. You are literally, you can walk from all those areas, but if you want, you jump in a Uber or a Lyft, and you're there in 7, 8, 9 minutes. It's central, and you don't often get a lot of those stadiums in the US which are located within the city boundaries.
We know that ourselves because we went to see the Saints play the Jets, and you have to get a bus out of Port Authority down there, and you can't. It's not hard to get to, but it's still, you can't, like New Orleans, you come out your hotel, go for a drink, and you walk. When I went to the NFC Championship game, we literally came out of the hotel, walked up Poydras, nipped in a place for breakfast, and we're there at the Dome. And you haven't got a trek anywhere. It's fantastic for that. Absolutely.
Well, you've hit on that game. So I suppose as it was both of our first visits, we should probably just talk about, actually, you said it was a last minute decision. So how did that come about?
It's slightly convoluted. On the Monday morning after we beat the Eagles, I had a meeting with my auditor at their head offices, and one of my auditors was from Philadelphia, and she was talking about. I kept pretty quiet, didn't want to offend my auditor and get a bad audit report. But she was talking about, God knows what they did to the city last night, because they burnt the city down when we won the Super Bowl. So God knows how they reacted last night. And I was sitting there, and I was just. I got back to my office, and I sat there. I was like, I'm just gonna have a look to see how much it would cost me to get out there, because she was going on about, we got there last year. It's so hard to get there. It doesn't happen very often, and it was all ringing bells with me. And I phoned my wife. I said, I really want to go to a Saints game, and this was on the Monday. She went, okay, when? I said, Friday. So she was like, okay, fine, and I'd look at flight prices and game tickets, and I was quite comfortable. It was expensive, but I was comfortable with the cost. And then I spoke to my brother-in-law, and he said to me, I'm not letting you go to New Orleans for the first time on your own. I'm coming with you. And I was like, I'll take some company. And then a friend of his who he works with is also a Saints fan, who I didn't know at the time particularly well. And he was like, I'll come. So we, that was the Monday. The Tuesday, we booked our tickets and our flights. The Wednesday, we had a panic because we couldn't get a hotel that slept free. So me and my brother-in-law had to spoon up. And then that was it. And then Friday morning, we flew out to New Orleans. And there was
Did you wake up in a fairly uncomfortable position with your brother-in-law at one point?
What, that night?
Yeah. Who was cuddling who?
What's that, sorry?
Who was cuddling who?
Well, I cuddled him because I've lost a lot of weight since then, but I felt that the size of him at that time, I probably gave him some warmth.
But
there was a lot of us on that plane. There was a few Saints fans on that plane. I think Ross Sutherland, Saints fan up in Scotland. Yeah. He was on my flight, and there's a couple of other guys. So we got into the airport. Immigration, like, you better have a ticket. I was like, I've got a ticket, mate. I've got a ticket. And that was it. Yeah. We stayed down down by the World War II Museum, found a dive bar when we got there around the back of our hotel, just sat in there drinking the strongest hurricanes I've ever had in my life. Like, literally, you put it on the bar counter, like maybe like 3 foot away from me. I was like, oh, I can smell that from here. And that weekend was one of the best weekends of my life up until that point. It didn't involve my wife and children. The only downside was the game. That was the only downside was the game.
Yeah, it was devastating.
And your wife took you to that game, yeah?
Yeah. She so that was a Christmas that was a Christmas present to me. So obviously
That's
Christmas
a ballsy
Day,
Christmas present, Mike, because we weren't there at
what's
Christmas.
that?
That's a ballsy Christmas present.
No, and therein lies part of the problem, because obviously she didn't understand the whole concept of the playoffs. She had no clue whatsoever. So we were, I think, at that point, I think we were guaranteed to be playing home in the NFC
Yeah, we were
Championship
top seed.
game. But we had a divisional game to play, so she was unaware. So she got everything, and it was wonderful. She did a little treasure hunt for me, and eventually, after about 20 minutes, I found it. It was like, and I was blown away. And I was blown away. And then for about 20 minutes, I was like, oh my God, this is brilliant. And then sort of my brain clicked in. I was like, we're not even in this game. So she bought tickets for the NFC Championship game, and we weren't even there. And it was Christmas Day, and I didn't have the heart to tell her. So I don't think I told her for another 2 or 3 days that it. And hey, look, I had no issue I sort of did, but I wouldn't have had a major issue if we had just went to the city. But yeah, so it took 2 or 3 days before I told her, and then she just sort of almost had a breakdown, because 2 reasons. One, because obviously the big picture was this game, it's an important game, and you're going to go to it, and it's your first game. And the second was the amount of money that she spent on it. Yeah. So anyway, yeah. So I remember watching the divisional game, and I think we went 14-0 down.
We did go down.
And she was watching it
in despair.
And, yeah, but she was watching it with me, and we hit that, and she just went, "I'm off to bed." She went, "I can't watch this anymore," and she was just distraught. I wasn't, actually, because I just think, even though obviously at that point, I think, on offense, we were waning a little bit. We weren't sort of as we had been during the season. I just in my head, I knew it was going to happen. And so thankfully it happened. And thankfully we got there. And then thankfully the actual trip that she bought was actually happening with everything intact. So yeah. And it was the same for me. I went over there. I said about the first experience when we stepped out of the hotel and when we hit Bourbon and stuff. We had a magical time. We had a really, really great time. I mean, the one thing, especially for my wife, is she doesn't drink that much. She used to drink a little bit more a few years ago, but she doesn't drink. But she sort of stopped drinking, and on the night before the game, we went out and we were all over the place. We were drinking here. We met people, Jenny and Ronnie. We met them, and from I think up in the Seattle area, and we were drinking with them. We went to Cat's Meow, which you'll be pleased to hear, Dan. Jenny got up and sang. And so we had a big night out, and then I don't think we got back to the hotel until about 3:30, 4 in the morning, which is gutsy considering the game was midday. And we woke up the next morning and she was in bits, bits. And she said to me, "Oh God, you've got to go and get me something to eat, and I need a coffee." And so I went, and there was a Starbucks sort of attached to the hotel. So I went down there and I got her a coffee, and then I got her a blueberry muffin, and I got her some fruit. And I came up to the room and coffee, muffin, is a bit of fruit. And yeah, guys, she just literally threw the fruit at me and said, "What the fuck are you getting me fruit for?" And then when we were outside, so she went outside and she was getting some air, and I took a picture of her and I sent it to. I got a WhatsApp group with my wife and my 2 sons in, and I sent the picture to the WhatsApp group and just said, "I need $1." Because she just looked. Honestly, I have never ever been allowed to show that picture to anyone. I've actually got to get her express permission to ever show that picture, because it is brutal.
Well, I've met your wife, and I'm sure I'm going to have to smooth talk it into seeing this.
Well, you can. Look, next time we're out, you try and smooth talk her. I've got the picture ready to show. I'm not sure she can show it. It was brutal. My kids absolutely pissed themselves.
You are. I will say you are the master of getting those pictures that we don't want shared, because I'm sure you've got a number on your phone of me that I'm like, and I'm up for the crack. You know me.
But also, it's one of these things. My wife is she's always been a serial picture taker, and I never used to be. And he used to sort of get on my nerves a little bit. And then I think it was her who said to me, "Look, you take these pictures to remember the moments." And literally now, I'm a serial picture taker. But the great thing about it is, we know loads of guys, and we've been away with loads of guys, and someone will say something about something, and I've got a picture.
Yeah.
And as much as memories are great, when you can actually physically see a picture of that memory as well, it's far, far better. I was going
to say, one of my favourite pictures you've taken of me recently was in the Aaron Rose, because it's got that open window looking through down to the bar. And I'm sitting there with our guy Adam from Saints Twitter podcast, and the photos from behind. So anyone else, we're having a chat. Unbeknownst to everyone else, we are deep in discussion about Taylor Swift songs and the meanings of the songs. And Adam's explaining to me, "Oh no, Betty's him singing it." And and you look at the photo and you think these guys they're deep into something. And no, we're talking Taylor Swift.
Taylor Swift, yeah, absolutely. All right, I think we probably should move on a little bit. Just a quick bit of.
Maybe we should talk about the Saints a little bit.
Yeah, we're not a deep dive podcast, but we'll react to what's going on, and then so Saints draft. How are you feeling, mate?
I'm quite pleased with the draft. I think it ticks a lot of boxes, and I think when you combine that with free agency, I'm pleased. I was a big. I'm not a big Dennis Allen fan on the back of last season. Yeah. The way the team played, and he was going to take a lot for him to win me over this year. I know not necessarily him doing it, but he's got his guys in now. He's got his coaching staff in. I'm pleased with the draft. I think they address key positions. I like Brazzi. It's Brazzi, isn't it? I heard Roman Harper say on the 28-3 podcast.
But it's all right. You're sort of almost half Cockney, so you can get away with saying
Brazzi
names any way you
Brian
want.
Brazzi.
He's right, Brassy.
He's a Brassy. He's right. Yeah. I might get it on the back of my shirt, Brassy.
Yeah.
Maybe a little bit Boston in there, but maybe anyone from Massachusetts probably sitting there.
Right,
no,
Boston.
Mate, no, that's not Boston. Yeah, and I like him. I really like Foskey. I've been watching some highlights. Really like the energy he's got, the way he attacks the quarterback. I'm really pleased with that. I was high on Taji Spears. I really wanted the Saints to draft Taji Spears, and actually, he was with me when they made that pick, and they picked Kendry Miller, and I was disappointed because I wanted Spears, but I've been watching Miller highlights, and he is Kamara-esque in some of the plays I've watched. So
I think it was fun because when we were over for Jazz Fest, we on the second day of the draft, I think we went to Superior Grill, didn't we?
Yeah, we did, yeah.
And we sort of had it up on the TV, and he got picked. And me and Mark at the same time, when they showed the highlights, we're like, God, he's very AK-like.
Yeah.
And he is, but also obviously he's a different and bit more downhill, which is obviously what you need because you don't want AK doing that. I mean, you could say that is he losing his edge? I don't necessarily think he is. I think the way he's been, the amount of that's been put on his back in the last couple of years, and the pounding that he's with. I mean, and also he's a little bit injury suspect now.
Yeah, I mean, last year I don't really think as a not a hugely technical person on the game. I don't really think we had someone we could run up the gut with it. Mark Ingram, as much as I love Mark, just look like he's running in lead boots at sometimes. And now with us bringing in Williams, love that signing. My favorite free agency signing. Great energy. If you think back to those boom and zoom days when it was Mark and Alvin just on the camera all the time, double act. I think Williams can bring that that kind of tandem. And then I mean, in a way, I don't really want to. Was that, buddy?
No, I was going to say you now almost you've got that room which feels like the load can be shared.
Yeah,
but also you can exploit the people that you've got in that room as far as from an offensive point of view. Which, geez, we haven't had that for quite a while.
Yeah, and I think in terms of moving down the draft, I'm going to absolutely butcher this. Nick Saldiveri. I think that's a great pickup.
Saliveri, yeah.
Saliveri. I think Pete's done. Pete will get injured this season. Stick him in at guard. I've listened to a couple of podcasts, and the consensus is that he's not a tackle; he's a guard in the NFL. So if Cesar Ruiz can carry on the way he did last season, and Saliveri comes in and he's a good player, I think that shores up the defensive line. Then hopefully Trevor Penning is the player we hope he's going to be, and then it's just a case of longer term what we're doing at right tackle, because we know Ramczyk's knees are not great.
Yeah.
So, but yeah,
it was the thing. It's one of these things, like, you never know, like, talent wise on the field, what someone's going to be able to do. It doesn't matter. You never know. One of the key things, like Saliveri, his first interview with the Saints, like post the draft, I just thought it was electric. His attitude is 110%. I mean, he's got an absolute attitude towards, I'll just get it done, whatever's put in front of me, and it almost, that's what, coming through college and being dropped, that's almost been his attitude, and he's got a great attitude. But then Foskey, his reaction to being drafted was spectacular.
I think it was, I want to say it was Ross Jackson I was listening to, and he was saying that this kid was, before the draft, he was saying to people, I want to go to New Orleans. That's the team. He was blown away with his interviews with the staff.
Yeah.
He decided this is where he wanted to be. And, I think that will carry through to his play on the field. I think he's got a really good chance of being, as the season goes on, taking over that right end position.
Again, and you have to have a skill set, but I just think attitude. For me, they chose players with the right attitude. Miller, even though some people call it controversial the way he sort of referenced AK. Not me.
That's what you want. Is you don't want someone's going to say, "I'm going to sit behind you." And
Dog's attitude. It's like, he's been good, but look, I'm here now. And so again, you can never tell what's going to happen on the field, but from an attitude point of view, I think spot on. And the QB, again, watching his interview, looking at his tape, he's got a skill set. Obviously, the size thing, but again, that's been proven that it's not necessarily detrimental. But again, his attitude, he's an intelligent kid. Really is. And you get the feeling, he's obviously got the relationship with Carr. He's got a form of relationship with Breeze, which may play out in the long run beneficial to him, because they've, I just think it was a great draft for us. And also, I think we haven't even spoken about the one that you're possibly most excited about.
A.T. Perry. Yeah, I'm really excited. I was watching some of his tape after he was drafted, and I'm not saying he plays like him, and I'm not saying but there is something to me. There was a smoothness to him that reminded me of Marcus Colston. Just the way Colston made it look, like, to me, Colston always looked effortless. When he caught the ball, he didn't look like he was busting a nut to get there. He just he was where he needed to be, and he made it happen. And I look at him, and I know the drop numbers are a concern for some people, but again, Ross Jackson put out some stats about how many times he was targeted during games, and it was ridiculously high. And he said, you've got to expect when, excuse me, when you've been targeted that many times, you're going to have some.
Not everything's going to stick. Not everything's going to stick.
And I know our guy London is super excited about him. Like, he's like, that's my jersey.
Isn't he? Absolute star. Yeah. But then, again, it's like, to pick him up where we picked him up,
and to get rid of Troutman as part of it.
Talk about attitude, certain issues. I don't give a shit. Do you know what I mean? Just get him in the building, get him into the culture, get some of the leaders around him. I mean, let's hope that MT comes back and he's somewhat of a force. Forget about just the force on the field. His attitude. If you're a young player and you're coming in, you're seeing the way that he trains, what his attitude's like. You're going to take that on board. You can't, but look at
that wide receiver room as well. When you compare that wide receiver room to 2021, it was Callaway, it was Lil Jordan Humphrey, all those guys, Ty Montgomery, and now you're looking at Chris Olave, Michael Thomas. It's Rashid
He, yeah.
Shahid, and those just
And yet again, we've not even mentioned we've got Edwards in the building as well,
yeah.
who has proven himself, especially with the QB that we've got in.
If we can get rid of if he gets rid of Traquan, I'll be
yeah.
Like, shout out to Traquan Smith. He's one of the best receivers in my Madden league for me. But in real life, it's just no.
And yeah, it's just like that's the infuriating thing, because you watch a game and you know that he's got glass hips, glass hands, glass legs. Because he's a good blocker, but he is always getting injured during games.
Yeah. And if you can't be getting injured, you've got to have that physicality.
Games that he completes.
Yeah, you got to have that physicality if you're going to be the blocking wide receiver.
Yeah.
So I was going to ask you what do you think of the schedule? Come out last night. I haven't watched the release video. I don't know what you think.
I want to visit the city point of view. It's absolute balls. It's really. It's just one of those. It's from my point of view, when I go over there, because obviously it's money, effort, all that sort of good stuff, and you have to get the brownie points with the wife.
Yeah,
I like to try and fit 2 games into my trip. If I went a little bit later in the year, you probably got where we got those 3 home games. You could actually, that might be okay. But also, we've got plans to meet people, and obviously, so everybody's calendars have got to fit into it. And there's just that it's almost a desert-like period during it, where there's a game here and then there's nothing really happening, and look, the way from a UK point of view the schedule played out, I'm not happy with.
No,
the way the actual schedule played out for us as a team, oh yeah, absolutely.
I mean, I was 100%. Looking at it earlier on. If you look, once you get past the Titans, your rookie QB, new starting QB with not much experience. You're then on to either Baker Mayfield or Kyle Trask at Tampa. Then you're on to Mac Jones at Patriots. Then CJ Stroud. It's not until you hit Jacksonville on 19th October when you come up against someone who I think is a good, reasonably experienced QB. So I think it's a good start for us from that point of view. But as you said, as a UK fan trying to get a few games in while you're there, unless you're going for that Lion Panthers and Giants game, it's not a lot there.
Again, from a UK perspective, for me, if the Giants at home and then going up to LA for that Rams game would have been absolutely perfect, because I want to try and visit as many stadiums over there as I can. But again, it's like, I know the guys in America have got a real problem with that because it's holiday season. So getting flights there is going to be a huge issue. Not necessarily for us, because I looked at it and I can get there and it's actually, reasonably priced.
Probably cheaper than going to NOLA direct, isn't it?
Yeah, less than I paid to go to Jazz Fest. So actually I was like, oh, wow. But then it's like I wouldn't be getting home until the 23rd of December. My wife would just be punching me straight back out of the house. So again, that was there are ways around it, but also you're always sort of dictated a little bit by the people that you want to meet as well.
Yeah.
And so I would gladly throw maybe a slightly better situation as a UK fan to go over there to meet people that I are my friends. So
from my point of view, I was actually really keen to get a the UK half-term school holidays end of October. I was really hoping to get a home game there. I was going to take my kids to their first Saints game. I wanted to take the kids and the wife to, we've got a lot of friends in New Orleans we're going to meet up with. I wanted to take them to meet them. It just hasn't panned out. Obviously, the Jags game's that Thursday night, and then we're away to the Colts. So I think I'll probably head over there for in November for a game, probably the Bears game, to be fair.
I think
that works for me.
I think that's what I'll probably do. And the other thing about that is that's bookended by, it's the Colts, isn't it, beforehand? Is it the Patriots?
The Vikings after.
Vikings. So I don't know. I'll ask people over there which
it's fucking cold up there, Mike. It's fucking cold up in Minnesota that time of year.
No, exactly. I know. But again, we're in the UK. Have you seen spring yet?
Yeah, we walk around in the t-shirt and shorts. Been there, done it. Got the T-shirt.
We're what, a week and a half away from June, and it is dismal over here. So I've got no issue
it's
with
rank.
that. Hey, look, we've both been in New York in December. Yeah, hey, look,
First time I went to
such
New
is
York in
life.
December. In November, freezing.
Yeah.
Just touching on a bit of international news. What do you think about the international games? We both had a season ticket at Tottenham Stadium together.
It's expected. It's a PR exercise at the moment in Germany, and I don't actually think they need that PR exercise. But then getting the big games, with
probably bigger than we've ever had, actually. To be fair,
yeah, and it is from the outset. Obviously, when they're announced, occasionally by the time they come round, they feel like a slightly bigger game.
Yeah,
but from the outset, looking in, the games that they're getting, or especially that Chiefs game, it's like a blockbuster game straight out the trap.
I think we've only. I might be wrong here, so please don't quote me on it. I think we've only ever had the Super Bowl champs come over once, and that was when the Eagles came over for a game. And that was when they was champs. Yeah, Gardner Minshew. No, it wasn't Gardner Minshew. He was playing for the Jags then. Sorry.
Yeah, so like I haven't got it in front of me, but the Bills are playing.
Now that'll be a good game. That game I'm looking forward to, Jags Bills, because Trevor Lawrence.
I think that
Josh Allen, game.
Bills are a pretty forceful team. And I think the Jags are on the up, and I think they showed.
Yeah, and I can scream at Deontay Harty like I did at the Vikings game for not fielding kickoff returns and punt returns. And unfortunately, I won't have my guy die next to me who was livid.
I'm surprised he wasn't thrown out.
He was heated. He was
heated. Yeah. He was saying it with his real chest.
Yeah. Although that fucker, right? So I think we went up in that game against the Vikings, and we started getting cocky, and we started doing the skull clap where we were sitting. But I tried doing it with a full pint in my hand. So I'm trying to tactfully do it. Dye comes in. He's like, boom. This whole pint gets knocked out of my hand. Poor Gav, the Vikings fan in front of me, absolutely covered him and his missus in a full pint. I have never felt so bad at a sporting event in my life.
Hey, they won in the end, so who gives a fuck?
Yeah, I owe him a pint next time I see him, but
yeah.
I think Ravens, Tennessee.
Is he always in front of you at the games?
What's that, sorry?
Is he always in front of you at the games?
Yeah, well, yeah. No, so I got so what I did last year, I had 4 tickets. My brother-in-law has 4 tickets at Tottenham. And because we had guys coming over from the States who was trying to get tickets, I was actually really fortunate. I got 6 season tickets in front of us for us to sit in. So obviously when Adam and our guy Eric came over with their partners, we had seats for them, and then there was a seat for me and Di. So obviously you've got 2 of those tickets now going forward. And then I got 4 to fill out with my buddies. So there's a few of us going. But we're all in a nice little bunch, which is quite nice.
Yeah, and also it's like, again, it's one of those things when you look at it and you think schedules, you think, we're not getting the great games. I do think that game will be a decent game, but also
Ravens Titans will be probably a good game as well.
I think so, but also it's that sort of thing. There's almost, because we're so starved of watching top level football over here, you just go and yet again, not only do you just go, but the community in the UK. There are people of different teams all over the UK. Always a sellout, never not a sellout.
You know what? I love just bumping into people that I follow on Twitter. So
exactly
last year I bumped into NFL girl Liz. When we was out, we bumped into the guys from National Vintage League, Ash in the NFL, bumped into there are just so many people, and there's people I haven't bumped into yet. I want to meet Matt from Twitter, the Jets fan. Graham up in Graham Henderson, Texas.
I bumped into Matt in King's Cross last year, and that's the wonderful thing. It's like there are so many people out there that you are from rival teams, but you get to know, and that's the beauty of the games over here. Is you go there. It's completely full of fans from all over the UK who support different teams. The atmosphere is incredible in the sense of people in the people's
community.
Sometimes are a bit crap. But then that's because the teams that you're watching, they haven't got huge fan bases, much sort of like us. But I think we really showed up last year.
Oh, massively.
Came over.
Massively showed up.
Yeah, for the first 2 days, I think for the Thursday and the Friday, London was just black and gold. It was just black and gold. You did not see a Viking fan anywhere. It was only on the night before the game that you saw any Vikings fan. Let's be honest, they did outnumber us, but then they're a bigger market team. But I was so proud, very proud of how many people came from the States and sort of came over to support the team in London.
Do you know what I would say? And I said this to a couple of my friends who came over. I said it was a truer representation of the city of New Orleans that came over for that game than the game against the Dolphins in 2017.
You're absolutely right, and that screams slight progress. I think you know what I mean for in the country itself, because it was lovely to see that representation, that real representation.
Yeah.
And God, they and us, we had some fun in the Horse and Guardsman.
Can I just say the Horse and Guardsman, what an interesting pub to use in London or a NFL pub. So those of you who aren't familiar with Horse and Guardsman, it is right on the cusp of Buckingham Palace and Trafalgar Square. It's right on the doorstep of all the tourist spots. You walk in and the first picture you see is a huge...
wait. It's not just a picture.
It's a painting.
It's a major piece of art.
It's a major mural artwork of fucking redcoats in the colonial wars or the Revolutionary War, whichever term you want to use, War of Independence, depending on what your persuasion is. Fighting. It's like you've got, and this is the pub for the Saints game. It's a pub for the game the week after against the Packers and the Giants. You're like,
the irony.
It's the irony. Yeah, but that was a great. Do you know what the best thing about that night? Our guy John, Dr. John, we call him Dr. John. He's a friend of ours from Nova Scotia. I want to say he's from. He's from Canada. Came over, walks into the bar. He's got a gold sequin jacket on. Comes over, finds us because he's been talking to us on Twitter, and we bumped into him the night before.
Oh, well, it was funny. Like you talk about Dr. John, it was the night that we went on the Thursday night where we went to
Jeff Duncan and Rod Walker's thing.
Stuff.
Yeah,
I was getting messages. I was saying to you, I was getting messages from. I'd never met him, sort of interacted with him on Twitter, and then I was getting messages as we were en route to the thing, saying, "Oh, where are you guys going to be? What are you up to? What are you doing?" And I was like, "Oh, we're going to this place. There's a Q&A, Juice McAllister and a few journos there," and thinking nothing of it. And literally about 45 minutes later, he turns up in a gold lame jacket with his suitcase in tow, came straight from Heathrow to the pub.
I love him.
He's just a wonderful individual.
I love him.
Yeah,
I love him. I've met him 3 times. He came and found us in New Orleans last week.
At Jazz Fest. But also it was like when myself and Alex went over last year for a meetup and
for the Raiders game.
We went out on the Saturday afternoon for lunch with some friends. Me and Alex then stupidly decided that we were going to go and watch some college football in a bar. We were probably there for about 5 hours. We were meant to be going to a party at 7 p.m. that night. So we roll back get a taxi back to our hotel. I think we get there about 5:30. We're in a bit of a rush because we've got to be at this party. As we walk in the door, Dr. John is in the bar of our hotel with his gold jacket on. So me and Alex then spent about an hour with him having a drink and a chat. He's a wonderful individual. Any Saints fan out there who may watch this, find Dr. John on Twitter because he's a wonderful individual.
I think Dr. John Giles. I don't want to say his name is.
Yeah.
But now you've revealed to Elise why you was late to a party.
Because they knew anyway. But I turned
up
slick, so I was forgiven. I couldn't talk, but I looked slick.
I'll give you your due. You look smart. I would have been sweating what you was wearing in that New Orleans heat that time of year. But fair play to you. Fair play to you, mate.
I was. So anyway, so we sort of spoken enough about like free agency. Look, in free agency, we sort of looked at needs as well. We don't know. Who knows what the defensive line is going to look like? We don't know. I think the O-line looks, if you can get players fit, that looks fairly decent, I think. But obviously, it's a suck 'em and see. At least they addressed it. They addressed it in both areas, in free agency.
More depth there now, I think.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the way that the Saints...
You still got James Hurst and Landon Young and those guys backing up on the O line.
But we do need to talk about Storm Norton. You don't want to get his virus, do you?
Don't talk about who?
Storm Norton.
Storm Norton.
Yeah. No, we don't want to talk about Storm. You don't even know what I'm talking about.
Do you know, I probably do, and it's completely escaped me.
All right, let's move on. So I think we've covered our low-level Saints stuff.
Yeah, probably. That's about.
Right.
I'll give you. That's about as best you're going to get. But maybe. Do you know what? Maybe as the season goes on, we'll get a bit better.
Yeah. Oh no, without doubt we will. Yeah. I think we'll have to.
we got to get on those. What was the term someone used? You need them podcasts to know them logistics. That's not.
Yeah.
We're talking about the human people piece.
Yeah. Right. So my question to you is, City or the Saints? So how did you start following the Saints?
I would say Saints first, obviously, from an obvious point of view. So I started watching NFL in the early 2000s. A big thing for me was finding a team that I could connect with. And an even bigger thing for me was I do not want to be seen as a glory hunter. So I've got pals who are Patriots fans. And they started supporting the NFL in the early 2000s. I got mates who were Cowboys fans from the 90s. That weren't me. I didn't want to do that. So I sort of didn't know. My wife was saying, why don't you just support one of the New York teams? We like going to New York. I was like, I don't know. It wasn't connecting with me. I'm a New York Rangers fan from an ice hockey point of view. So I've got my New York sports franchise that I follow.
Yeah.
And I don't know the exact holiday, but it was 2000. I want to say it's either late 2006 or early 2007. We were coming back from some holiday, and I was on the flight, and I was just reading. I don't want to say that Sports Illustrated, but it was something like that. It was an American sports magazine, and they had a whole article on the impact of Katrina, the city coming back, how the city's been galvanized by Sean Payton coming in, the drafting of Reggie Bush, signing Drew Brees. And I didn't know anything about any of these people. I didn't know who Drew Brees was. I had no clue. And I was like, do you know what? This feels like it was almost like an instant connection. And I was like, this is my team. I came home and I ordered a Reggie Bush jersey, and that was it. But if I think back to things in my life, there are definitely points when I think about stuff that I enjoyed or it resonated with me that had a connection to New Orleans. Now, some of this is going to be really, really cheesy and maybe a bit tenuous. But I remember.
Let's hear those tenuous links, my friend.
Tenuous links. I remember watching Candyman 2, which was Farewell to Flesh, based in New Orleans, and the whole. And there was just something about those cemeteries and it, almost like that spookiness. It resonated with me. I think I spoke about this people before. My favorite X-Men growing up was Gambit by a long way. The Raging Cajun. When I watched X-Men, he was my guy. And all these things.
If we ever edit these videos, I'm going to get a tenuous link alert to come up. Because fuck me, that's tenuous, my friend.
You think you are Mark and Lard back in the day on Radio 1? No, but those things were things that sort of resonated with me. I love jazz music. I love that kind of thing.
Yeah.
You know, the whole voodoo thing. I'm fascinated with it and stuff like that. So it resonated with me, and you know. I'm a big foodie. You know, I'm a big foodie. And just
you chose the right city for that, my friend.
It all fit perfectly, and that was it. I was hooked, and you know, unfortunately, it took me a while to get to see them when they came over to play the Chargers. My first child, my daughter, had just been born, so I didn't really have the funds to get over to the game. It wasn't expensive, but you know, when you first kids and stuff, it can be a bit
circumstances there, isn't it?
It's just taking off. And then, do you know what? Like this is incredibly naive, but for a long time, I didn't think there was any other Saints fans. Not a lot in the UK because I didn't know any. And then I get onto social media and Twitter, and I'm following a lot of US fans, but there's no UK fans jumping out to me. But then you find one, and
Yeah,
then it's
let's
like a
grab.
domino. Then they come, and
Yeah,
now
yeah,
I've got hundreds of Saints
yeah.
fans in the UK I follow. Yeah, and it's a good community. It's a really good community. Some good people.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
You know, we've
Yeah,
had
yeah,
meetups with people. We've gone to play
yeah,
baseball in batting cages with them, and you
yeah,
know,
yeah, yeah.
we've gone to see Mike and I first met. We went to see a Hot Eight brass band together.
Yeah.
With our guy
Yeah,
Mark
again,
Daly.
that was a Twitter interaction. I think we were. I don't. Were we actually friends? I can't even remember because I know you didn't want to follow
I
me
want to
because I'm an
say we was
Arsenal
in that
supporter.
same. So I'm not in it anymore, but we were. I think we was in the Saints
Yeah,
WhatsApp group together for a time,
yeah, yeah,
a
yeah.
UK Saints
Yeah,
WhatsApp group, and I'd avoided following you for a little while, along with Ben Wright and Elliot and those guys, because you all supported Arsenal,
yeah.
and I was like, I can't. I was big. I was my fandom was like 70%
You were a little
30%
bit
Saints.
more into soccer.
Yeah,
At
soccer.
that
My
point,
soccer.
it
Yeah,
probably understandable why you're not now, but
yeah. I mean, my fandom now is like 98% Saints, maybe 2% Spurs because they
no,
get
I
on my
think it's 98%.
fucking nerves.
Probably 98% Saints, 1.5% Rangers, and like 0.5% Spurs by the sounds of it.
Yeah, no, that's a fairer. Yeah, I joke. I've only got last season. I was joking when Dennis Allen was being like whatever. I was like, I've only got room for one unserious football franchise in my life, and it ain't Tottenham.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's so yeah, and that was, and then we followed. You said, "Is there?" I remember you saying, "Is this a private party? Is there room for one more?"
Yeah, because I got a ticket for it, and because I was going on my own, I think you initially were going on your own, but then you got in touch with a guy we know called Mark Daly. You ended up going, and I said, "Is it a private party? Can we go?" Mark came a bit later. You were in the pub. I walked in. I think you realised I was probably because I was covered in Saint shit.
This geezer walks in with this white hoodie on. He's got a Saints hat. He's got. Do you know what? I want this hoodie. I cannot find it anywhere. It's a Les Bon Temple hoodie. Yeah, you can't find it anywhere.
I've had even when I bought it when I was over there the first time I went over there in the club shop. Even in the city, people when I'm walking around, they're like, "Oh my god, can I have that?" It is my favorite thing. Like I've got like 20 jerseys, or whatever, but that is my favorite.
That's like my me with my. I've got the green salute to service zip up, the shiny one. I love it. Love it.
Yeah. So yeah. So we turned up the gig, met at the gig, became fast friends after that.
Yeah, I mean, I remember.
And you just had surgery.
I just had. I hadn't been. No, I hadn't been well. I'd been. So I couldn't drink a lot, which we've made up for in spades. In spades. But I remember. I distinctly remember us walking out of that gig, and I said to you, "We're going to go to New Orleans together. This year, we'll go to a game together." And we'd met each other 5 hours earlier, and then 2 weeks later, fucking COVID.
Yeah. Absolutely destroyed everything.
Ruined it all for us. Ruined it all. But we've made up for it. We've been to New York together for a Saints game. We've been to New Orleans together for Mardi Gras. We've been to New Orleans together for Jazz Fest. We take any opportunity we can to meet in London for a drink. We don't live particularly close to. Well, in the grand scheme of things, we do. We live about an hour away from each other in a car, but we take the opportunity we can get.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So,
what about you, Mike? What was it drew you? What was it drew you in the city or the team?
Well, mine was a little bit of a sort of a like. I'm obviously a bit older than you are, and I think I came to the game properly a little bit late. But so for me, it was the city and not the team. So I used to be in the sort of early 90s, I think it was. I used to be a really big fan of jazz rap.
Yeah.
So I was a bit of a fan of hip hop rap, but jazz rap. So, and then like Guru Jazzmatazz, I remember I absolutely loved him. Absolutely loved him and what he was doing. And I then, as you do, so you're talking, I think probably 93, 95. I mean, prior to that, I'd been to a Monarchs game. which was fantastic. I didn't understand anything about the sport, but I went to Wembley, went to a game, thought the spectacle, even back then, was like, oh my God, because I'm an Arsenal fan, I was going there, and it was like two different worlds. So the spectacle was like, wow, what the hell is this? But yeah, I was into jazz rap, Guru Jazzmatazz. Then I used to so obviously we're talking almost like dial-up connection, where when you like something, you would have to search on what was a really grungy sort of internet at the time. And I was so into him. I like just it was weird. It was a weird thing in my head that because of that genre, he wasn't the biggest, or he wasn't actually probably the best. You know, he came from, I think it was Gang Starr and all that. So I love that. So anyway, that was my first introduction to jazz. My dad had a little thing about jazz. I didn't have a great relationship with my dad when I was younger, but he was a very sophisticated Irishman, and he talked to me a couple of times about jazz. And then I found this. So then jazz became not a huge thing in my life. It became a thing in my life. And then so, you know, I was a youngish kid, and so I wanted to find out what jazz was about. Obviously, found out where the birthplace of jazz was. Then I started sort of listening to a couple of people who, you know, from that area, you know, who were obviously, you can think about Armstrong and all that sort of thing, but then I would listen to Branford Marsalis, and it was like, so jazz sort of popped in my head. Yeah, again, not the big thing. I'm not a musician, but I just love. I mean, look, we've been to New Orleans enough times for you to know that I love going into a bar and just sitting there and listening.
Oh, if you give Mike the chance to get to Frenchman and watch it, like, I'll go, Mike. I'm the jet lag. I've got to go. You go. Okay, I'm just going to grab a cab and I'm going to head up to Frenchman, and I'll see you in a couple of hours.
I hear it every time, and I just love it. I love the virtuosity of it. I just love watching great musicians, and I'm not a musician myself, but I love watching it. So that was the thing. So then it was like jazz, then it was like the birthplace, then sort of tenuous links again. It was like I just started, and yet again, it's not like nowadays where I can go on Amazon or YouTube and find everything I want to. You had to search for it, and actually,
down Camden, looking in the record shop, seeing what you can find.
Absolutely, and so it became a sort of a search passion, and you know it. So I had that thing with jazz, and I always wanted to go to the city. Just like that was it for me. It was like I need to understand like where a certain, not even a certain section of music, but actually it was almost like the seeds of music came from. And that was the city. And so it's always been in my head. Then, so I had an interest in American football, obviously went to a Monarchs game. That sort of went by, you know, I then, you know, found my missus, had kids and stuff, and all that sort of thing happened. But always seed in my head. And my wife used to say to me, oh, if you go anywhere in the world, where would it be? And my two locations were Cuba and New Orleans, and that was it.
I've been to Cuba, lovely place.
Yeah, I've never been, and it's a weird one because I've never been, but those were my two. So it was all throughout that time. So anyway, we get to probably about, well, actually, yeah, again, we're talking about the city, and then obviously Katrina hit. And even though, yet again, we now have 24-hour news, so if that had happened now, literally, it would have saturated the TV. Even back then, there was enough news where you're like, what? I mean, it was, you know, it was traumatic watching it, and
then I'm living for it. Yeah,
going through, you know, it was just a humanitarian disaster. And then you start reading stuff about the fact that, yet again, the people from that area are just being so horribly mistreated, ignored, everything. And so, and then, you know, obviously, I think, was it the following year or 2 years later, Spike Lee releases When the Levees Broke?
Yeah, no, I've got that, When the Levees Broke documentary, and I've actually had people sit down and watch it with me, and they've said to me they just didn't realise the extent of what happened.
Yeah. So
I'm always respectful when I'm in New Orleans. I don't ask
No,
people
no,
about
no,
it
no,
because I
no.
think it's a
no.
very
Hey, look,
traumatic thing
if
what people
somebody
went
wants to say
through.
something to me, they'll say
Yeah.
something to me. I am not asking them a question. You know, I'm
But
happy
we got a friend Josh, haven't we? Who lives he actually lives in Mississippi, but
yeah,
he was obviously they didn't get the same anywhere near the same kind of devastation. But he would talk to us about he would say to us when we went and see him like hit land over there and it
yeah,
came in and then it came over to New Orleans and he shared just today actually he sent us a picture of
right.
the how high the
28
water
foot.
was on the banks just between
28.
Biloxi and Ocean Springs.
Yeah.
So even that
Yeah.
is just astounding.
No, absolutely. And so that was the thing. So like Jazz got me into the city, then seeing the devastation that was there. Then and the thing is, regardless, I used to watch every Super Bowl because it always used to be televised live in the UK. I would watch every Super Bowl, and I was saying, I'm an older man who came to the game a little bit late, and it's probably around about 2015. I think around about that time, the BBC started showing their highlights show. And it used to be on, I think, after Match of the Day, like which is the soccer program in the UK. And I used to watch it and always watch it. And then they had another one on Tuesday, and that was after something else to watch. Literally within about 3 months, I transformed from having an interest in it and watching only the Super Bowl to literally everything was about that game. Then staying up and even when I was up, when I was working, I was still up at 4:30 watching games on a Sunday night. So it just in 3 months enveloped me. And then I think actually my wife said to me, you're so into it, you got to choose team. And there was never a doubt in my head. Never a doubt, because I had an infatuation with the city anyway. So I chose them. But even then I wasn't, probably a little bit like yourself, mate. I wasn't actually at that point in a financial situation or a position to get over there. But after, I fortunately I sort of got to a point where I was. And since then, I mean, as you said, I think you said about the COVID years after the Hot 8 brass band gig, I go
We was
there
itching to get back out, weren't we? Itching to get back out.
Yeah.
So I got a question for you.
Yeah.
I'm just looking behind you. What's more treasured to
Yeah.
you, your AK helmet or your first Erin Rose Irish coffee cup that you've got sitting there? Because I know, like, I just want to say, Mike's Erin Rose is Mike's place. It's like if you know that you get the regular, like Norm from Cheers. I imagine when Mike walks into the Erin Rose, they're like, "Hey, Mike," even though he hasn't been for like 6 months.
Yeah, a little bit like that. It depends which bar staff are on, but it is a little bit like that. But genuinely, it's like, and it's not only, I mean, that is my go-to. It's like, even though it's just off bourbon, where you think all the manic stuff in it, it's like, but this is a reflection of the people and the bars and the restaurants and everything in the city, is that they're just fabulous people. They're absolutely fabulous people. Yeah, it's my go-to thing. When we were going over for Jazz Fest, I was meant to get to the city, I think 2.5, 3 hours before Dan. For whatever reason, I think Dan's flight.
I jumped a flight. I got into Atlanta early, and I got put on standby for the earlier flight.
Yeah, and then I decided to be a good mate and stay and get a taxi with him. But prior to that, I'd said to him, "I'll get to the hotel. You know where to find me," and it would have been the Erin Rose. Yeah, I love it there. I love it there. It's always my end stop before I go home. But there are so many fabulous places out there. When we went to Bayou Beer Garden,
it's great in there. That watermelon frozen margarita. I was dealing with some bad jet lag, and I was sitting there. I remember sitting there. You stayed back in the room to get a shower, and I jumped in a cab with Joey and Adam, and we're sitting there, and they're like, "Are you all right?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'm just flagging a bit." And when you get a bit when you got the jet lag and your arms feel weak, and you're like, and in my head I was thinking, I can't do this. And the draft hadn't even started, and I was like, I'm gonna have to go home.
But you messaged me.
I messaged you. I'm done.
I'm really struggling.
Got one of those watermelon margaritas in me. Boom, Dan was back. And then
when I turned up at the bar, I thought you'd been on the Disco Biscuits. I was just like, what the hell's going on?
I'm the saviour. I brought the Pepto Bismol shit that everyone loved. Took some tequila rosé out to New Orleans. Oh, mate.
Yeah.
Every American looked at it and went, I'm not drinking that shit. They took
No.
one sip and I was like,
Loved it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
All
now they
right,
know
I
they can
think
fight there.
actually probably should wrap up, shouldn't we?
We've gone on for quite a longer than I
I have
expected.
no idea how long, my friend.
We're about an hour-ish, I think.
Right, cool.
So I've got a question for you, actually. So one of the things I want to do is I want to invite people to give us questions. And they haven't got to be Saints related. I just like random, see how our brains work, see what our thoughts are. So this was a question that came from our mate David Howes.
I am really not happy to hear that Di put a question in.
He did. He put a question. I'm just trying to find it. And the question was, I'm going to paraphrase this because I can't find it right now. He said, would you rather fight an orangutan twice a year? So 2 times a year you have to fight an orangutan, or every time you get in your car, fight a chicken?
I would fight the chicken.
Yeah, I think an orangutan. I don't think I'd get past one fight with the orangutan.
You wouldn't have a fight with an orangutan; it would kill you.
I mean, I like orangutans; they seem quite docile. But I think if I jab one on the nose, it's probably going to fuck me up.
They would, like, even if they don't kill you, they're going to fuck your spine up or something. So you're not going to be even capable of having a wrestling match.
Especially if it's one of those big ones. Like, you've ever been to Colchester Zoo? One of them in Colchester Zoo is fucking massive. Like, he'd probably just get you.
I'd rather the annoyance of a chicken every day, because bottom line is you can kill that. And
once you get it, you wring its neck and you're good. And every time you get in your car, you got a fresh chicken to cook.
Exactly. You can, release Chicken Shack or something.
And you know, I love to smoke my food.
Having said that, we had that when we were in Jazz Fest, when our friend Joey, went and got a little bit of something to eat, and me and you were walking down the road, we nicked one of his wings and stuff.
Chicken.
Go to America. It doesn't matter what you have in the UK. It could be from the worst fucking place in America where you have a chicken wing. It's better than anything you get.
Do you know what? That chicken wing as well, right? You get a chicken wing here. One thing that really pisses me off is you go and you order wings and they come out baked, and I'm like, no. They're slimy. They've got the skin on them. They're gritty. You go to America, and do you know what it reminds you of? You seen that video on Instagram of the guy who does the commentary, and the woman gets a chicken wing, puts it in her mouth, and just pulls out the bone. And he's the guy. He's from like Bradford or someone. He's like, "Beg your pardon, where's the chicken gone?" Is that one? It was literally like that. So I'm walking down Canal, and I've got this chicken wing, which is probably more like a drum than
it was a drum.
To be honest, let's be frank. This chicken leg or chicken wing, the drum of the chicken wing, was bigger than the bloody chicken legs we get in this country. Like the chicken leg drum, not the wing. Don't get me started on that. Do you know what? Keep pumping the GM in the chickens, because if they come out like that, I'm doing it all day long. Anyway, this chicken, though, I was like, bone came out. I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. I wish I'd bought some more, but then I just went and got absolutely shit-faced drunk, did karaoke.
And some karaoke.
Loads of shots, tried to melt a lot of ice in the toilet. Went to Frenchman, had a wee. Went to bar, had Sprite, and said, I've got to go back. But good times were had. And, you may have seen the photo of me doing the karaoke. I was into it. Backstreet Boys. I want it that way.
One day we'll release the full video of that.
Well, I think Adam says you've got to be a member of the Discord if you want to see the full video.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you have to be a member of the STP Discord.
Yeah, Saints Twitter podcast.
But that video is worthwhile because you get some very romantic looking ladies looking at some guys. You get some really good dance moves.
Oh, Mike's dance moves. Mike got asked.
Choreographer.
Mike went to the bar and some guy sort of saddled up to him and said, "Are you a choreographer?" Mike, what's your answer, Mike? I'm just a piss Brit on holiday.
But yeah. Anyway, mate, look, I think wrap up.
One thing I wanted to do before we wrap. This is our first podcast together. We've been talking about this for a long time. I just wanted to have a little drink with you, raise a glass to hopefully a podcast that people are going to enjoy, that people are going to want to listen to. People are going to want to come on. I'm hoping. What you got there?
That is a Darlington Elmer's here rum.
That sounds posh.
Yeah, it is quite. I think the in-laws bought it for me.
Oh, well,
Oof,
I'm hoping
it
that
smells posh.
maybe we can get our guy Di on next.
Yeah.
He's due to be a dad pretty soon, so he might be sidetracked by that. But we've got,
Yeah.
and I'm not gonna. I'll try and show it without you being able to see. We've got a list of names of people we want to get on this podcast. They're not all Saints fans. Not all Saints fans. They're not all based in the UK. Some have been to New Orleans, some haven't. We're ambitious. There's a few journalists we'd like to get on here. No, I'm not saying anything, but Mike and Ross Jackson, they're pretty buddies on pretty good buddies on the Twitter. You know, I've got respect for people like Ross and those guys.
No, love Ross. The
Ross,
most beautiful man on the planet, Ross Jackson.
When I listen to his podcast, I feel like he's a good friend of mine, just giving me updates on the Saints. He's beautiful. He's beautiful. But yeah, like people like Ross, John Hendricks, those kind of guys, love to. If you get a chance, we're being overly ambitious at this stage. But anyway, so I've got this is called Stargazy.
Is that from Essex?
Caramel?
Is that an Essex brewery?
So shall I tell you why I picked this out to do this drink? So this is from the people who make Dead Man's Finger rum. And it's exclusive to the Rum and Crab Shack in Cornwall. And the reason I picked this is because they've got an extensive southern flavored menu. So I went there earlier this year and I had their gumbo, which is probably the best gumbo I've had in the UK, especially since Nola Bar shut down in the East End. So I'm going to pour a little shot of this. Well, I'd say a shot.
Right.
I'm eyeballing that.
Before we cheers, let's just tell people that obviously this is a podcast that myself and Dan have set up. Never thought, I don't know about you, Dan, never thought I'd ever be on a podcast, but I'm on a podcast now for one reason, because of my love of something. But also what we're trying to do is we're trying to get stories from other Saints fans who live all around the world, not necessarily in the States, although we might try and grab some people to have a conversation with them, because obviously the other thing about it was, I think it was the analogy that I gave earlier, somebody who lives in the New York sort of tri-state area who ends up supporting the Saints. That's weird. That is, I mean,
a great example of that is our friend Joey's from Pennsylvania. Yeah, exactly. I'd love to. I may have had this conversation with him. I probably was drunk, so I probably forgot. But I'd love to sit down and talk to him about why are you a Saints fan? Our guy G lives in Utah. Why are you a Saints fan?
Hawaii. Hawaii. All that.
We got friends in Hawaii.
You think, how the hell did you end up doing that?
And there's some commonality. Like some of these guys are like, you'll say to them, they go, "Oh, I'm a big USC fan. Love Reggie Bush." Yeah, simple as that. The other thing is, one thing, maybe not as much, Mike, but we got a couple of people who aren't Saints fans actually, but have been to the city, and I'd love to talk to them about their experience as an away fan in the city and see how they appreciate it. I think.
Also, it's that sort of thing. Yeah, again, expand it beyond the fact, like we're UK-based NFL fans. There are so many over here, and so many dedicated fans who have stories about their teams, and maybe we'll talk to them about their experiences and why for them.
For the
time being, it's Saints.
Saints all the way. Saints go all the way.
Germany, Italy, Australia, South Africa, all these places that we know that Saints fans, we want to grab them, put them on, and find out why. And at the end of it, have a shot with them.
Yeah, perfect. Salut. Salant. What did you say? Salanti.
Cheers, guys.
Pretty nice. Right, we're going to bounce. That's not. We're going to bounce. We'll catch you next time.
Yeah, we're bouncing. Take care, guys.
Take care.